right, hopefully I am back. Give it a couple minutes to catch up, but we just took a look at the Extra Life and what they are, and then the Dell Children's Medical Center down there in Austin, and the things that they do for kids. So I just wanted to show those to let you know what Extra Life is and what hospital I'm going to be raising money for. And then, of course, the next thing I'm going to talk to you about is the game I'll be streaming, which is Shroud of the Avatar. Shroud of the Avatar is a spiritual successor to the Ultima series and Ultima Online. It's designed to be a sandbox type of game, but with a very strong storyline backing it. A powerful world full of magic that's recovering from a cataclysm several hundred years ago. And it's, of course, run by Richard Garriott, so he is doing a lot of the world building there, but he has a great team too. He has Star Long, who was part of the Ultima Online directors, and he has Chris Spears, who has a lot of experience there in the game genre. There are a lot of other developers there in the office that have amazing skills. So really looking forward to that. And of course the Shroud of the Avatar community, which has really stepped forward to not only develop the game as it's existing right now, so there a lot of the assets that are being used are things that were created by the community, but almost all of the music for the game has been created for the game by the community. About the only couple songs right now that are not are the first one that you hear when you log in, which is Carlina's song, composed by David Watson, who is the real-life version of the companion Iolo from the Ultima series. And then the Death song, which is composed by Shooter Jennings. So those two are about the only non-community song, the commercial versions of those songs. So give you a trailer for the game, just to give you an idea of some of the gameplay and background. The voice that you're going to hear on this voiceover is Bill Johnson, who was the voice of the Guardian in the Ultima series. So show you that, and then we'll be back to talk about it.
Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path, and leave a trail. 35 years ago, Lord British brought us one of the first computer role-playing games ever and forged one of the longest-running fantasy game series ever, Ultima. 17 years ago, he reinvented the role-playing game with one of the very first virtual worlds, Ultima Online. Lord British is out to do it again with the first crowd-funded and crowdsourced selective multiplayer role-playing game, Shroud of the Avatar. Play solo offline to experience the storytelling you can only find in a classic Ultima, or play online in one of the three modes, solo, friends, or open, in one massive shared world where you control who you play with. Quest and fight your way through an epic adventure in a vast, multi-scaled world. Shroud of the Avatar isn't just about an adventure. It is about creating another life in a fantasy world. The game is truly player-driven, with the best gear made by the players, sold in businesses run by players, all in buildings placed by players. Join our team that includes Richard Garriott, also known as Lord British, Ultima Online Director Star Long, New York Times best-selling fantasy author Tracy Hickman, a team of industry veterans, and most importantly, tens of thousands of backers just like you. Join us in Shroud of the Avatar, Forsaken Virtues.
So, as you can see, there's a lot of big names working on that game. Tracy Hickman has completed the book that is being used as part of the framework of the story, the prequel novel, basically. And it was taken and is currently being expanded into a full novel that you're going to be able to find on bookshelves. And there's 2 more books in the series that's going to follow it. He's also the lead writer for the Underworld Ascendant game, which is a direct successor to Ultima Underworld. So that is also going to tie back into Shroud of the Avatar, in that the race of the Dark Elves is actually being drawn from the world of New Britannia into the Stygian Abyss, and he'll be writing the prequel novel for that as well to kind of explain that. So there's a definite tie-in between the two. So 4 books from Tracy Hickman, basically set in the world of New Britannia. Definitely looking forward to that. Alright. It's almost 8 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and get started. You guys were able to vote on the Shroud of the Avatar forums to see which path I'm going to take for becoming a new character. And the character type that won is the Archer. So I'm going to be starting off with the Path of Love, and we will get started here in just a second. Let's switch over to Shroud. I do still have a couple people saying that the stream is just spinning after the commercial that starts it off in Twitch. I'm definitely able to see here that I'm connected, so if for some reason it doesn't work out that you guys can see me, I'm going to start breaking these up into maybe an hour or so and uploading them to YouTube as we go. It'll take a little bit of bandwidth from me, but I think that's better than having you guys have to watch these entire groups in one sitting. So go ahead and get started in Shroud. The first thing I want to do is show you guys the opening cinematic, which is very cool. I'm going to turn the music up here. And the tune you're hearing, the end of Here It'll Restart, is Carlina's Song by Dave Watson.
Night began for you as many others, wandering the internet, a click here, an update there, following the various trails of your friends, both real and digital. Another evening searching for something itching in the back of your mind, something familiar yet unremembered. Much of your time of late was spent poring over ancient manuscripts, describing a world apart from yours. These manuscripts were not easy to find. Hidden in corners of the dark net and forums almost impossible to access. The temptation of forbidden lore was enticing, and your time spent gaining access to this, rewarded. The documents you have found tell of a world caught in a cataclysm of destruction, enough power to rip the moons themselves from the sky and destroy what civilization existed. It tells of people struggling to survive, of wars and dark magic and heroic deeds. As you read of the world after, of compacts agreed, civilization restored, and oracles consulted, your excitement grew. The documents were all unclear on issues of time and space and place, as if the world they described was apart yet close by. So close that you felt something call to your very spirit. This world and its struggle is where you want to be. And you felt for the first time the pull of your destiny. As you read from the ancient manuscripts, that pull became more and more fierce, more and more physical. You feel more strongly than you have felt anything before. Your heart races, your muscles flex as though you were in an illusion, one from which you would awake if only you would just open your eyes.
So we'll go ahead and get started here. First thing we need to do is create a character. And there's a number of different options you can have. Of course, gender. There's a number of different skin tones you can choose. How big you want your character to be. I'm pretty tall, so I usually pop that up. And you get to make some additional selections as well. So, what color do you want his hair to be? Which style of hair do you want? You can spin the character around if you want to see what those look like. Darkstar style soul patch. And then what eye color do we want? And then you can move some of the pieces around. So where do you want the eyes to be? How far apart they should be? How tall they're going to be? Wide? Have any type of tilts? Kind of see the bulge more when you're from the side, and then how big the iris is. And then we'll do the same thing with the nose. You can do some adjustments here. So you can see there's a lot of different things that you can customize on your character. Just kind of slide these around a bit. Give them some different looks. Alright. The same thing here. If you want the cheekbones to move, how big those are going to be, how wide the mouth is. Want to move the jaw a bit, you can do that. You want to do to customize your character, you can do it. This is expanded several times through the development cycle, so it went from a single model pretty much on the first release to what we see here, and these options will continue to improve, I'm sure, before release. But now that we've got a character ready to go ahead and click create, and it loads us into what's called the Isle of Storms. This is a location that's part of New Britannia, but separate. You can see we're met here by Arabella. And you can kind of look around here and see the isle is floating in space. And it's not the only piece of land that's doing that. See the sun on one side, and you can't see from here, but you'll be able to see New Britannia here shortly. But let's go ahead and talk to Arabella, and we can start our adventure in the new world. So she greets us and says that they've been waiting for us to return. This does make it seem a lot like you're the old Avatar returning to Britannia after a time. So you can ask her about what an Avatar is. She says that Lord British has been waiting for us, and that, like us, he is from Earth and is immortal and can reincarnate, and he wants to guide us toward our destiny. You can click on any of these underlined links to continue the conversation like I've been doing. You can also type directly into the chat to speak to her and ask her any questions you might want to learn about. So we'll ask her name. And she's Arabella. What is your job? And she's here to guide us toward our destiny. So, of course, we'll ask her about destiny, and she tells us that our actions will be determined in New Britannia, but she needs to give us our path first. So as soon as we're ready to begin, we can do that. Go ahead and do that. So the first question, you can see that we're getting some pop-ups here that are guiding us, just hints. If you don't want to see those, you can unclick that. But I'll leave those up just so we can have a good guidance for this intro. As you can see, the choices that we make here will decide how we begin in New Britannia. There's a limited number of choices right now. Basically, you can choose whether you want to be a fighter and learn sword skill, whether you want to be a magician and start with some fire magic and healing, or if you want to be an archer. And an archer starts with some arrows and basic skill in ranged and piercing attacks. So we will do that. So her question is, if you were entrusted to deliver an uncounted purse of gold along the way you meet a starving beggar, what would you do? Will you truthfully deliver the gold knowing that your trust in you is well placed, or lovingly give the beggar a coin knowing it shall not be minced? So, the beggar a coin. Alright. So, Avatar, if in a hard-fought battle you manage to disarm your mortal enemy, who's a cruel murderer, in a duel to the death, and now he's at your mercy, would you show him love by permitting him to yield, or courageously fight to the end? So we will permit him to yield. Alright. And you've sworn an oath to stand at your post during a battle, yet your friends were suffering from close-pitched skirmish nearby. Would you show courage and aid your comrades, or will you refrain and truthfully state you followed orders? So, let's show courage. Alright. Very well, you've selected the path of love. The trading post in Solace Bridge waits you through the nearby lunar rift, and it's time for you to travel and meet your fate. I've got a message from Royal Sexy, who's on Avatar's radio, and he's going to be covering the charity for the next few hours. Yeah, we're getting lots of issues on Twitch, so he's not actually able to see us, but hopefully you guys are. Let's go ahead and continue down the path and see what we can find. Come out here, and in the distance you can actually see the shattered moon of Daedalus. Now you can look down upon the world of New Britannia. can also see a couple of the planets that rotate around New Britannia. Haven't really gotten names for them yet, but they're suspiciously in the traditional colors. So a black vortex, a blue world, and a red satellite. There's a few others you'll be able to see as time progresses. And then as we approach the lunar rift, it tells us what that is. We can double click on it to continue. The views from this location are just amazing. You can look down here and kind of get a lay of the land. Of course, a lot of that is still changing. Hasn't completely been filled in yet, so. But let's go ahead and continue through the lunar rift. And we're entering the town of Solus Bridge. Unfortunately, this first location you enter as part of the tutorial is under siege. So you speak to a bard named Edvard, and he is telling you of the undead army that's attacked and asking us if we need a bow. So yes, we need a bow. He tells us to pick one up right off the weapons rack. So we'll go ahead and exit conversation with him. We'll just grab that and equip it. You can see as I drop that on my character, it equipped the Bridge Defender's bow. And we start with some basic equipment here. Now we can come back and talk to Edvard a little bit more. Alright, let's see how good you are. Try it against that training dummy. Alright, let's go do that. You can see the training dummy here. If we press the Z key, we enter combat mode. And then we can shoot at that training dummy. You notice as we hold down the mouse, it increases our power of our attack. So when we shoot, it does more damage. And then down at the bottom, we have a number of skills we can use. One of the other things that he does is give us another group of arrows that we can take. So I can drag those to my character, or I can click the Take All button. Now it's time to move. So he tells us to go through the gate and encounter all the skeletons on the bridge, and then he'll meet us across the river as he sneaks out the back. So since we're here, let's take a look around. You can see Solus Bridge is burning, but there are a few things we can look at here. So let's go inside. And notice right away you see a defender that was killed, and he's got a letter. So Guard Hobart wrote this to his Zorbeth, and just like a traditional Ultima game, you can flip back and forth between the letter, and we can take it if we want. Nothing really that we get for doing that though, so we'll take a couple other things here that we can see. So Guard Hobart also wrote about the attack. And then on the bookshelf, you can see there are a number of books here, and each of these are actually books. So you can see there's some library fragments here. There's the Chain of False Beliefs, Mouse and the Camel. So each of these books you can read. You could take with you if you wanted. They all have different covers. Like the Broken Horse here has the cover for Woods on it. There's a Jane's a False Belief has the Dark Star symbol. So, a number of different things there. Inside the pantry there's a barrel. Not much that we can take in there, but since we got a good supply of arrows to start off with, we don't really need to take anything with us. But here's Hobart's room. You can open his chest and find that there's some fabric in there. The scraps that you'll find or salvage from different items you can use to create new items in the future. So we could take those and try our hand at crafting, but I don't think we really need to do that right now. There's nothing in the chest of drawers. There's a book on the nightstand there. Dire Prophecies are a series of books, and there are some studies that are out there that explain them a little bit more. Odd with how much fire is going through here that there's a good third of the buildings in town are still standing. As we approach the gate, it says that the switch can only be opened if you have the Bridge Defender's bow. We already picked that up, so we don't have to worry about that. But you also see that there's a dead guard here and some more just beyond the gate. It does note that if you loot dead bodies, you're taking a chance with your virtue. So you definitely want to limit how often you do that. But this guard, Sir Quincy, happened to have his girlfriend Emily, who was waiting for him. So we're actually going to take the items off of his body, even though it might ding our virtue a little bit. But we'll try to return those to Emily here soon. So you noted as we got near Solus Bridge that a new waypoint popped up on the compass. Just lets you know when you find new things. You can see that there's a couple guards here. One of them's dropped a shield, and you can take those if you need to. Since we are focused on archery, and we started with a few arrows here, that we don't really need to pick those up yet. But let's get ready for the skeleton, who's going to try to attack us, and it'll tell us to prepare ourselves for that. So, go ahead and hit him first. And when you charge up that attack, it really charges up, so sometimes you can drop them before they can even get to you. So, pick up some gold and a rusty weapon. The nice thing about the rusty weapons is, even though they're not really useful in combat, comparatively, they are fairly decent salvage. We missed our attack, so he's going to come attack us. But you can see these are pretty decent weapons as well. Since we actually have some of those arrows using the other skills, is actually detrimental to us right now, so won't do that very often. But when you win, it notes that we've been damaged slightly, we've taken some experience hits, but we can double click on that skeleton and pick up any loot that he might be carrying. There's one more skeleton here that we're going to need to deal with. And right now I'm just standing toe-to-toe with them because it doesn't really make any difference. They're not that powerful. here soon when we start going into combat, I'll be running for my life while I'm trying to fight, because compared to a lot of the critters out in New Britannia, I'm woefully weak. So Edward's made it out ahead of us, and we're ready to talk to him, get ready to leave. Since I'm actually holding my bow right now, he's not going to want to talk to me, so I need to put that away before I can chat. And the next hint just tells us things that we might be able to talk to Edward about, such as what his name is, how's he doing, things like that. So, he says, thank you for dealing with the skeletons. He does let us know that there's another odd fellow about, who's an elf, but there's a boat waiting for us when we're ready to leave. But he's going to send us to Soultown and then on to Arteris once we're done. However, he does want to ask a favor, and he's going to give us an item to deliver to Stanley, who's a guard in Soultown. So we'll do that soon. And he gave us that in addition to a couple of maps. Since we've got time, let's go take a look around and see. We're free to explore, but there's a lot of undead coming, so we shouldn't spend too much time. Might be a false lead. As far as I can tell, I've stayed here for a long time and never been attacked, so... but that can always change. You can see the exit here in the north is blocked by flames. But we did get that noted on our compass. And we do start with a map of Solace Bridge, so if we use that, it can kind of give us a good idea where we are. As you can see, there's a clearing up to the side. This is the town that we were just in that was engulfed in flames, and there's a little bit of ruins down here. So let's turn back around. There's also a few areas in here that you can find when you come back. Down here is a valley. It's actually Dead End Valley, but this is a good place to hunt wolves when you come back after the flames are gone. The clearing that I noted was a old standing stone structure. Versions, this was a lunar rift, but the rift is not active currently. You can see the river underneath the bridge, and there's a boat down there, which is what we'll use to get to Soul's Town. And then down here is the ruins. And you can see an elf is standing here. We can definitely give him a chat. And we'll answer our name, since he asked. Says his name is Kiakas. Every time I see his name, I think it's Kick-Ass. But he talks a little bit about the ruins that he's in. He knows that we are an avatar, and he has some idea of the prophecies, although he suggests we speak to the Oracle in Arteris before learning too much. Talks a little bit about the elves. In the past, dark elves were created by the bad guys of the series, the Obsidians, and they were basically used as warriors during the battles several hundred years back. So the current village of Virtus has a group of elves who want to coexist with humans. So they're still trying to figure out human customs and deal with us, but that is another location you can visit. We actually started in Solace Bridge because we chose the path of love. You can go to the village of Virtus or the village of High Pass, depending on what you answer during that test, and get different introductions. Each of them are not exactly well off. There are things that you'll learn in each of those that start you on the path. So we're learning the path of love. If you learn the path of courage, you actually need to do some battle inside those areas. Very similar to this, just in a different scene. And then when we're ready to leave, we can continue on down the path here. And this notes that the boat does take us to Soul Town. Since Shroud of the Avatar is still in pre-alpha status, there's not an end in place yet. A lot of the story hasn't been implemented, so the tip right now tells you a lot about that, but it does talk about the different modes available. So if we are like we are right now in multiplayer mode, when we leave we're going to see other players running around in Soul Town. But there's also a single player online version that's available now, and that mode will allow you to adventure just by yourself. And there's two other modes that haven't been implemented yet. There's a friends only mode, which will allow you to be online, but only people on your friends list, or friends of friends, so on and so forth, will be sorted together. So you may be in an instance of a scene that you can't see everybody that's there, but you'll see some people. So that's one mode. And then there's an offline mode available as well, so you can play the entire game through just by yourself, more in the tradition of the original Ultima games. In that mode, there will be some differences between the online. Online, a lot of the things that you're going to do or receive will be based off of a rent that you'll have to pay on an item, or a vendor or something like that. That's not going to be in the offline game. There's also some items that you can get for real money only in the online game, such as the Duke and Lord of the Manor. They have large plots of land. You can get those in the offline mode even though you're not pledged at that level. So, nice way to play. The two modes are completely separate, so you can have an offline character and an online character. They can progress completely separate. Let's go ahead and leave Salt Bridge and go to Soul Town. And we arrive by way of that boat, so the only bit of water here in the town. And it will explain how you can move, how you can interact, how to take screenshots, things like that. Close that. We arrive here, and right in front of us is a guard. That happens to be Stanley, who we're looking for anyway. Get some tips about how to engage in conversation. He asks our name, so we'll respond. You can tell him the correct name just by saying my name is, but you can ask him about Edward. So you probably ran into Edward if you're leaving Solus Bridge, and he's helping other people escape. Did he leave anything for you, Quincy, or for Stanley? So, yes, of course he did, because he gave us his notes and asked us to pass them on. So we'll give that to the guard. And it does note that questing is different here. There's no quest markers, there's no exclamation point above someone's head. You actually have to respond and keep notes. There is a journal. I'll show you that here in just a second. Everything that you progress in here, we'll get some journal information about that. And he does note that there's a camp of survivors from Solus Bridge that has stuck here in Sultan. Started off by arriving in a new world, met Arabella, and now we gave it notes to Stanley, so you can kind of see as we were progressing, it didn't know what we were doing. Well, since we're here in town, we can go across the path here to the survivors camp. You can see that there are points of interest that I just noted the refugee camp is here. All the different travelers that are sitting around the fire here have different quests you might be able to go on to help them. They're all looking for news of different people that may have survived, or just mourning people who know that they did not. This person actually has a quest that we can solve. This is Emily, and she's worried about husband, I believe. His name is Quincy. When we tell her about Quincy, she asks if we have any news of him. We do, not good news, but we'll give her the letter that he wrote and his sword. And she is brokenhearted that he didn't survive, but did provide us some gold and asked us to leave her as well. And now we can head into town. As you can see, there's a lot of players who got here before us and have placed their homes here in town. This is one of the Knights' keeps. I believe that's the benefactor. No, that's the founder. Knight's house. That is an obsidian tower. There's an elven house. And from time to time you'll run across the Watchers. And the Watchers are minions of the Oracle. Things. There's two variations. There's this spider-like contraption and the one over here that flies. But they help the Oracle keep an eye on everything that goes on in the world, of which she has several opinions. We'll talk to her once we get down to Arteris. So, as we get into town, you notice that every town has a town crier. The town crier in some towns will double as a bank. This one actually offers a small quest to carry mail. And he also tells you if there's any available lots for rent. It looks like all of the lots have been taken here in Saltown. But there are a number of people that we do want to interact with here. We'll talk to this gentleman about the undead and the plague that they cause, and asks us to take the fight to them, which we're planning to do anyway. And since he is already worried about the plague, he gives us a couple of cure plague potions. And we can use those when we go back to Solus Bridge. There's also a couple things to note here. There's a skill trainer. And the skill trainer is going to be how we progress in our character class. It is a classless system, so you can choose any of the skills you want to advance in. So there's split between adventuring and crafting skills. So if you want to go out and chop down trees, you can do that using the forestry skills. If you want to turn those into boards, use milling, and then use carpentry to build those items into actual craft goods. So you can definitely progress as a crafter here, or as an adventurer. So each skill has its own tree, so we know the basics of using a sword in bladed combat, but we don't have any advanced skill. We didn't progress in that area. However, we do have ranged combat skill, and it's fairly well advanced, and we have a number of additional skills that we can use. You can see as you progress each that it will advance the range, lower the cooldown, or possibly increase the damage of each of these. Each also has a potential for a special ability. A disabling shot will reduce the movement rate of an enemy, so you can kind of slow them down so they can't get to you quite as quickly. Piercing does more damage than the others. Blinding lowers their dexterity. And piercing is ignoring armor, so it doesn't do quite as much damage, but it ignores a lot of the armor that they wear. There's also some additional skills we can learn here that are passive, so you don't need to have an icon on your bar to use them. The first one is Ammo Scavenger. That lowers the number of arrows that we have to shoot. It used to actually cause those arrows to show up in the loot when you went to pick up dead enemies items, but that was changed a couple of versions back to be a little less intensive for the server, I believe. Okay. And then there's additional skill for accuracy to increase the range and to increase the damage of the weapon. So as you can see, each has a prerequisite. So to learn strength, we have to learn range. To learn range, we have to learn accuracy, and to learn accuracy, we have to learn the Ammo Scavenger skill. So we do have 300 points here, so we could start progressing in these, but let's save our gold for right now, and we can get those as we advance. The other thing to note is every single skill you have, you can determine whether it's training or whether it's just being in maintenance mode. Right now, every time we use these skills, they're advancing. So we started with a skill of 30, and we're already halfway through that to get to 31. So it's a use-based skill system. If we do continue to use that, it's going to advance, but it starts eating up the experience that we have too. So you can see we have an adventurer pool of experience right now of almost 25,000 experience points. If we start using these skills, it's going to eat up part of that pool for each use to try to advance the skill. So you want to keep some experience in here by killing creatures, and if you advance all of your skills at once, it's really hard to do, especially if you have a lot of these innate skills, because every skill you have advancing will eat up part of that. You can also see there's light or heavy armor that you can wear. Both are fairly ubiquitous depending on what type of armor you have. So a lot of it's going to depend on not necessarily the armor itself, although there are some differences, but your playstyle. So in light armor, you're going to get abilities to dodge and take less damage by tumbling and you have the ability to escape and lower aggro. You're also going to get things like Flurry, which gives you a haste attack, and Sprint, which increases your movement speed. And you can progress in some innates, which allow you to increase your speed and attack and lower your damage that you receive. So if you're going to advance in light armor, you definitely want to take those. Heavy armor, on the other hand, you do have a taunt ability in here so that you can draw aggro to yourself from your friends. So if you want to play a tank, that's definitely something you want to progress in. But you can also get things like deflection, which increases your defense. You can increase your stun resistance and ability to shake off those knockback and knockdown effects. And endurance, which will increase your strength directly. In the magic schools, everybody starts with the gust skill, which is good because we're going to be doing some gust ball later, so you definitely need that. But you can also earn some passives in each of these, so since I do know a little bit of the air magic, I can start progressing in attunement. Attunement means that I will take less negative effects against this specific school of magic, but it's going to have an opposite effect on the opposing school. So in the air, if I started learning attunement here, I wouldn't be knocked back by gust as often, but I would take more damage against somebody who's using earth magic. So, and you can do those either progressing both sides so you stay neutral, or progressing one that you want to do the most in without anything in the other side. That way, though, they won't offset each other. In the earth group, one nice thing is, in addition to the attunement, is that there's some innate skills in here that increase your skills across the board. So the Bulwark of Earth increases your strength and damage resistance, which is good regardless of which other skill sets you have. And Sympathy of Stone is increasing damage avoidance. So if you're going to be in close combat, or especially if you're going to be soloing things, I really suggest taking these type of skills, because those are going to help you more in the long run, even though they're going to eat up more of your XP. Okay. And then there's a third group of adventuring skills that's called Strategy, and has 4 schools inside of that. Focus is increasing your magic capabilities, basically, but it's also improving how you handle skills. So Heightened Awareness is increasing your focus. Focus is a pool you use to, every time you use one of the items down on the toolbar, it's going to take some amount of focus. So having a larger pool for that is beneficial, so you definitely want to increase that. There's also some skills in here that allow you to strategize within your drawing pattern. There's 2 ways of playing with combat. There's a locked skill, which is basically just an icon you can click on your hotbar, just like every other MMO. You press 1, it always does this, but it doesn't have quite the same impact because you can't mix it with other skills in that case. You can also draw skills, which will allow them to be a little more randomized. You have to pay attention to what shows up on your hotbar, but then you can combine skills to form combos in skill weaving or spell weaving, and those combos can do either a lot more damage or have a much better effect, and they cost less focus. So always things to be aware of. You can also increase your intelligence in this school, so if you're going to be playing a mage or somebody that relies on intelligence to cause damage, you'll definitely want to be focused there. Or you can look into some of the innates here, which is decreasing the focus cost of swapping decks. You can have 2 different decks set up, so if you wanted to use the bow and the sword, you can switch between the 2. You can also have decrease the focus cost of all glyphs, so once you start using higher magic, or you're have a lot of glyphs you're going to be switching off on, like since we're an archer, we have 4 glyphs on our bar right now that we can use. We could take some levels in this and reduce the cost of those. As you can see, the first level is really not a lot of decrease, but that does go up as you progress in the intercom skill. and then follow through will decrease the fizzle chance. So depending on how heavy your armor is, whether you're moving or whether you're being hit, you have a chance to fizzle your skill use. So being able to reduce that chance is always good. Subterfuge is a new skill for this release. This entire group didn't exist before this, but it is really designed to give you a way of acting more like a thief. So you can distract your opponents so that they don't attack you, they go investigate somewhere else. You can engage them by doing a little bit of damage at first. You can trip, poison, camouflage to become invisible. You can learn silent movements so you can move while stealthed, do a sneak attack, knock an opponent out, pick locks is coming, pickpockets will be coming. They're just not implemented yet. And then this is also where you're going to train in your dexterity skill. It's going to be useful for us because we're an archer. Ours is based off dex. And you can learn weak points so that you gain additional crit bonus. The tactics skills are really designed for melee combat for the most part, although there are things you can do in here for any type of combat. The first level of this is increasing your health and regeneration ability, so you definitely want to progress in that regardless of your character type, but you can also reduce the amount of damage your armor takes and weapons. And then almost all of these others are stances, and you can use one stance at a time, but each stance has a specific type of effect. So if you're in Berserker stance, your strength is higher, you move faster, you hit faster, but you don't regenerate as well, and you fizzle more. So that's the trade-off there. Passive increases your regeneration, but you do less damage. Defensive, it's really just a tank ability. You don't attack as quickly, but you don't take as much damage. And then Reckless is exactly the opposite. You do more damage, attack faster, but you get hit harder. So you can train in strength from this skill. So if you need to progress and do additional strength, or you want to carry more, that's definitely an option here. Heavy Lifter also allows you to increase your carrying capacity on top of what your strength is. And then there's a row of skills here for basically learning offhand attacks. So Parry will allow you to increase your damage resistance, so you can definitely use that to take less damage while you're fighting. And then there's a list of offhand, so you can dual wield weapons and attack with the offhand, gain some resistance while you're using an offhand since you can't use a shield, and do more attack damage with that offhand. So, and then the last one is Taming. Taming is a group of skills so that you can use a collar on a damaged animal and try to take control of it and make it into a pet. Basically, the taming collar is used to tame the creature, and then you use a summoning whistle that you can wear around your neck that will allow you to summon that monster, animal, whatever it is, later. And then there's some skills here for increasing their capabilities. It's very expensive to advance in taming right now because the collars are hard to make. They require silver and a lot of other components. And the creature, when you do tame it, you can summon it once, and if it dies, you have to resurrect it before you leave, or it's gone permanently. Which is great once the game is in full swing, because those will be fairly rare. But right now it's very hard to advance in pre-alpha, just because the number of colors you would need to train it up. So, but that's the basics of skills. We're going to have a session here very shortly that talks about this. So let's progress on a little bit more. And just a second, I got a message here. I want to check. still having a problem getting people into the stream. It keeps showing I have 3 viewers online, and then it drops to 0. So I don't know if it's Twitch getting interrupted, or if it's an issue with my ISP, or what might be going on here. But yeah, I'm definitely having some technical difficulties today. I'm hoping it's just because of the number of players involved with Extra Life. The tour guide is over to our left here. We're actually going to be talking to him later tonight. Envico has a walkthrough on the forum of how to get your tour guide helmet. There's a new one available in each release, and you can see in this release it is a Plague Doctor's mask. Kind of cool. Take a look at some of the others that are available here. This is the inn, and there is a banker here that we can look at some of our rewards from. Everything you purchase or that comes as part of your account will show up as a reward in the bank. So you can see I have a number of trees and arrows and things like that. I actually went through a few times and got some extra arrows. You can see I have a couple thousand arrows in the bank here. Since I knew it would be progressing as an archer, that was a good plan, I think. So we'll go ahead and grab some of these arrows, just so we have them available. We also have some bolo arrows, flare, bodkins. Those are actually used for the different ranged attacks. So with an aim shot, we use a standard arrow, but with a disabling shot, we have a bolo. It says we have 6 on our person right now, so we can continue to use those. However, even if we don't have those arrows available, except for the standard attack, we can still use the skills, but they cost 50% more focus, which actually at a low level isn't that big of a deal, and it still allows us to progress. So I'm going to drop off these other arrow types, because really what we're going to be focused on is using a standard arrow. You can also see we started with a map of Arteris, of Salt's Bridge and Soul Town, and some repair kits. And those repair kits will be useful once we get going, because we can, if our bow gets damaged, we can repair it using carpentry. We have those rusty swords that we picked up, and we'll actually be using those to turn into salvage items so that we can make new arrow points. But all of the other things that are in here we can use. There's owls and books, and I have a polearm because it was from the Star Citizen cross promotion. I have some cabinets of virtue that Rustic Dragon had created and sold as part of his initial outing. Got a couple moon dials. So the Dark Lepus Mask was a previous reward for the Grand Tour quest. I have an Elven Bow, which is one of the better bows you can use in the game. So I could even switch to that. And do some additional damage here. I also have a number of different types of armor. So there's Founder's Cloth, leather. It's really not a whole lot better than what I'm wearing now, but the one nice thing about this is once we have a full suit on, it does give us a bonus. So I can go ahead and switch to that. Choose a hat, and one of the last ones is what I prefer, the Highwayman's hat. And you can see now we have an armor set bonus that gives us some additional damage resistance. We also have a lute that came with my pledge level, and I can use that if we want to play some songs. And once we equip it, it does tell us that we can use the play command and then just type. I'm not very good at this yet, but we can definitely play a couple tunes. But for now, I'm going to keep that in my inventory so it doesn't get damaged. And I will just bring it with us and we can play that when we get somewhere else. You can also see there's a piano here in the inn. And you can do the same thing just by sitting down. Going to get started here during and do some skill work. The thing about skilling up, especially as an archer, is that it's either going to require a lot of arrows or it's going to involve running away a lot. So you can do either one of those things. I choose to run away a lot because it's a lot easier farming arrows. Although, as you saw, I do have a couple thousand, so it shouldn't be a big deal. I'm going to head out of Soul Town and find a place to do a little adventuring. Easier to find when it's dark, but it is a lot more discreet for an exit. Occasionally there's just a pillar or something like that. Once we exit town, we'll be on the world map, and this kind of gives you a rough overview of where you can go. Allows you to move in any direction. See places that you can enter are marked with a map item. Alright. Avatar's radio is just asking for an update, so we're going to tell him. Exiting Soul Town. So there's a couple of different things we can do here. We could try to go into the local trail, the Perennial Trail, and do some combat. Perennial Trail is a little more difficult than some of the others, just because it's a swampy area that there's not a lot of exits around. So I'm actually going to forego that and head to another location. So here you can see is the East Perennial Trail. It's all in runic on the banner, but as you approach it, it'll actually show you what the name is to enter. And this large town down here is Ardoris. Now, there's a number of things we can do in Ardoris. However, we don't actually need to go in there to progress. I'm going to take this boat here, which will take us over to the Hidden Vale. And the Hidden Vale was one of the very first areas designed for pre-alpha. So a lot of the things there are lower level. It's actually easier to hunt. So we're going to head there. This is the town of Kingsport. And we are actually going to be meeting up here tonight as part of the stream. We'll have a Dragons meet at the Hearth of Britannia, and the Hearth of New Britannia is actually located in Kingsport. But there's two places I usually like to go when I'm here. The first is this location right here called Kings Road. This is a crossroad between the actual Kings Road, which heads towards Kingsport, and this path here that heads in towards Owl's Head and then down to Braemar. So we can either head to Kings Road or we can head south a little bit. And you can actually see the South of Valeway here. This is another good place to fight. It's good for skilling up, so I think we're going to start here. There's some skeletons and wolves and bears and things in the Valeway, which are really good experience. They do hit pretty hard, so you need to be careful getting around them. But the same can be said of anywhere at this low level. The other thing in here is, regardless of which place we go, are spiders, and spiders traditionally have been overpowered very badly, so you want to avoid them at all costs. So, since it is 9 o'clock, and we've been having some technical difficulties with people being able to see us, I'm actually going to stop the stream now and restart it, invite a few more people into the Hangout, and then we'll restart and continue our journey, and hopefully we'll be able to have a few more viewers online. So I will be back really shortly, and we'll start this upload to YouTube. Thanks.